I am so honored, guys, to have this wonderful opportunity to interview Tara Coyote from Kauai, my favorite island. Not sure if you realize that. My husband's from Maui, but I've always loved Kauai and the waterfalls and just such natural beauty. She's the author of a best-selling book. Listen to this title: Grace, Grit, and Gratitude, a cancer thriver's journey from hospice to full recovery with the healing power of horses. She works as an equine facilitator, a learning teacher, right, with humans and horses. She lives with her two horses, Australian Shepherd, and I understand a lot of cats, and I would love to hear that story later. My daughter is just so infatuated with horses, so I'd love to hear that story. But in this interview, I'd love to hear your miraculous journey and what led to the book, and how you managed to come out as a winner after being diagnosed, right? Were you just diagnosed with stage 4, or how did it start?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here. It's an incredible honor. Nice to have another Hawaiian sister here to connect with. Yeah, so my story is definitely on the longer side. I'll paraphrase it. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in September 2016. And my best friend had died a year previously from acute myeloid leukemia, and I was one of her main caretakers for 22 months from diagnosis to death. So I had a lot of trauma around that. And due to the traumatic situation of being with her as a caretaker, they wanted me to do chemo, surgery, radiation after I was diagnosed. And I was a very natural girl to begin with. So I refused all the conventional medical therapy, and I decided to do 100% exclusively natural path, which I did, healing cancer naturally for 2.5 years. I was doing quite well. I was living in Northern California. I owned a horse retreat center called Wind Horse Sanctuary, where I worked with people in a therapeutic manner with horses. And then a very stressful incident occurred, which made me sell my ranch and my business. And it was very, very difficult. And during that time, the cancer spread from stage 3 to stage 4. It went from my breast to my lungs, my liver, my spine, my hip, and my adrenal gland. I sold my ranch and my business. This was a period over like a year, a very stressful year. And I moved back home to Kauai, Hawaii, where my dad is from. I've got long family Portuguese lineage here, and felt very fortunate to move back here. But when I moved back here, I was actively dying. I had so much cancer in my lungs, I could not talk or hold a conversation. I could not lay down to sleep for 2 months because I was coughing so much and gagging in my sleep. I was walking with a cane because my left hip was breaking. And they pretty much recommended me to hospice in the winter of 2019. And they said, Tara, you're dying. And I knew I was. And they said, you might want to give chemo a try because it might save your life. And so I said, okay. I had to face my fear of doing chemotherapy, which meant I had to work through a lot of the trauma around my best friend's death. And because of the aloha spirit here in Kauai, and the practitioners and the nurses and doctors were so kind and accepting, I decided to do chemotherapy. So I did that for 9 months. It was very difficult. I almost died a few times. I broke my left hip because of the bone metastasis, and I had to have double hip surgery. I had to learn to walk again. And but I got through it all. I finished treatment in February 2020 with pretty miraculous results where the cancer shrunk all throughout my body. And since then, the tumors continue to shrink and my bones are growing back, and I'm living a healthy, normal life, taking care of my horses. And I'm just so grateful to be alive. So you mentioned about my book, and I thought I'd just share. So yeah, when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I was just finished with treatment, and I was getting ready to do a documentary about cancer thrivers who had defeated the odds. But then the pandemic hit, and I live on Kauai, the most isolated island in the world. I'm like, okay, well, there's no way I can travel or the people can travel. But I had about 6 years of writing from after my best friend died, that I poured my grief and everything into my writing. I was sharing on social media. And I said, okay, well, maybe I'll take this time because I'm in quarantine to write a book. So I spent about 16 months writing daily. And my lovely book is a result of it here: Grace, Grit, and Gratitude, a Cancer Thriver's Journey from Hospice to Full Recovery with Healing Power of Horses. And it was recently published in August. It's doing very well. And yeah, it's been quite a wild journey, but just basically, I'm just so grateful to be alive and to be able to talk with you and live life here in beautiful Kauai.
So any suggestions for people who are traveling the same journey, or perhaps having a loved one who's also loved one or friends? Because this is something where, what do you say to someone to comfort them? How do you even accept it? Because it's tough.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because it's a very awkward topic. A lot of people don't know what to say. It's a lot like grief. People don't know how to be with people with grief. So what I suggest, and I have written an article about this, about just being present with it, just showing up for somebody, saying, I'm here for you. I love you. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. It's a very awkward situation, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable with the topic because, we're a death phobic culture. And if somebody's diagnosed with cancer, you're immediately walking around and scaring people because they equate cancer with death. So my suggestion is just to be real. Say, I really don't know what to say. Like, I feel very awkward in this situation. Or, maybe not say that, but I don't know what to say, but I just want to let you know I'm here for you. The other thing I'd like to say too, we're a culture where we like to be so self-sufficient and independent, and it's really, really hard to ask for help. So instead of saying, like, just call me if you need anything, be proactive and say, hey, can I bring you dinner on Thursday? Or can I walk your dog? Or, if they're going through treatment and they need help, but be very specific and proactive with offering to help, because it's hard to ask for help. And that's one of the great gifts of cancer, at least for me, was to learn how to ask for help. So yeah, lots to say on that topic, but that's a little tidbit there.
And what intrigues me is your journey as a death doula. I've been talking to people, like, I met a death doula, and they have, what is that? Because they've heard of what is it when you give birth and there is a
birth doula, yeah.
Yeah. So
A
how did
midwife.
you,
Wife,
yeah, midwife, right? So
right.
how did you stumble across that journey? You're mentioning your friend. So is that,
Right.
how do you even become one, and can you define what it is?
Yeah, it's sort of a new phenomena, really. So a death doula or death midwife is somebody who's present for somebody during the dying process, holding space for family members and for the person who's dying. Sometimes, if the family wants to be with the body, they can help be present with the body after the person departs and do whatever is needed. It's basically somebody to help hold space for the process, just like a midwife, a birth doula. It's somebody to help with the process. And interestingly enough, birth and death, they're very similar. I've been to both. The reason why I got involved with it is my best friend Deb died, and I was there the last 3 days of her life. It was a very profound experience. And we had another friend who was very knowledgeable about what to do with the body afterwards. And we kept her body out. It was in Northern California for about 12 hours so people could come and be with her. We put flowers around her body and crystals and made her look really beautiful. And it was a very profound experience to be with her and help ease the process of coming to acceptance about her death. Because a lot of times when somebody dies, their body's just whisked away, and it's very traumatic. So I became very intrigued with the process after Deb's death and became trained as a death doula, and also volunteered at Hospice because it was just so fascinating to me. And little did I know that I'd be diagnosed with cancer after she did. So yeah, A
you
lot of
couldn't
death.
even predict that. I mean, that is just when I heard that, when you just shared the sequence, I didn't realize that you could have the body for 12 hours. We were told, with my dad, it's like, you know what, we need like, I don't know, an hour or half an hour. And then my auntie said, can you please tell them to extend the time? So she rushed to the hospital, and then they said, okay, we'll give you an extra half hour. But I didn't realize that if they're in the hospital, can you, I mean, how does that work?
It's a little different in the hospital, and it really depends state to state. I don't know how it is here
So
in
you're in a
Hawaii.
home, you're saying if you're in a home, because I know
Yeah,
when I talked to a few friends whose like mother-in-law passed, it's like there's like 5 police cars followed by like, right, just a whole bunch of people. And then I know that it wasn't like a pleasant experience, because then of course the neighbors are thinking, why are there 5 cop cars by your house? And then,
right.
the ambulance, because they need to, right, rush the body to the hospital, and then you have the mortuary, and it's just, I wasn't prepared. I knew my mom was going to be transferred to hospice, but when they say, so what mortuary? Where do you want the body? And you just think,
Yeah.
you
No,
know
so
that
much.
those are, it's just, I didn't, because she wasn't dead yet, and then I didn't realize, wow, when the hospice people came and had all these questions, and even though they say, this is going to be uncomfortable, but we need to know like where you want your mom's body to be
Right.
sent. And so you were there for the last 3 days.
With my friend's death. Yeah, yeah. And that's a death doula helps to organize those things too, because it is so emotionally overwhelming. I mean, you and I share the same situation where our moms just recently passed in the last few months. So I know we're both processing that. It's vulnerable to talk about. But, for me, even with all this death experience, I was the one who called the mortuary and got the urn. And it was so painful to be like, she wasn't dead yet. And like I had to do all these arrangements, and it was so excruciating. So a death doula can help with that too, all the practical things, because it's very emotionally difficult to go through that. I mean, even if you know how to do it. So, and also too, I wanted to add, hospice is a lovely organization because they help organize that. Whereas if somebody dies at home, without hospice, then you call 911 and it can be a lot more traumatic. So I haven't gone through that. Every death I've experienced, there's been hospice involved. So I highly encourage people to work
Yeah,
with
I
hospice.
didn't really know. I thought hospice was like towards the very, very end. And then you hear people, my mom has been in hospice for 3 years, or my dad's been in hospice for like 6 years. And then one of my friends said that
Right.
her friend's dad was released from hospice after 6 years. And
Yeah.
you realize, wow, I didn't know like how the whole hospice experience worked. And then I didn't realize there's a bereavement for 1 year. They just called me a couple days ago and said, we'll check in for the next year. For the next year, just to see how you guys are doing and if there's anything we can do. And it's just, I didn't know it was always this way or how to even prepare, because every one of
Yeah.
us will lose a parent, or some of us will lose children, or like you said, a best friend. Any advice, since you've been through that journey? And we both, Tara just recently lost her mom, very recent, right? Wasn't it
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks? She's yeah. And for
Very
me, it
raw.
just seemed like it was 3 weeks ago, but I think it's because the funeral was Black Friday.
Right.
And then
Right.
when I picked up, I've never dealt with ashes ever. So we decided to pick her up. And then I decided, I'm glad I did, to get an urn, a little baby one. And then I thought, how do I even, like, I didn't want to like touch it. And my husband's like, oh, we'll just go in. I go, what, with a spoon, no, we'll just dip it in. I mean, and so I'm watching it, and
Oh
he's
my
like,
goodness.
so he takes the bag out and he says, oh, my dad's ashes weren't like this. And I said, what were they? It was like, I don't know, like they're talking, comparing like the color. And I'm like, oh. So I
Right.
run upstairs, Chelsea, you want to watch dad? He's going to put grandma's ashes. She goes, no, no. And I know my older one, she was in California doing her move. And I said, okay, I'll watch. And then my friend's like, and it's okay if some of it spills, it's okay. Because I'm thinking, what if it like, my cat's around, and then I joke around and say, geez, what if he's gonna think it's kitty litter.
That's so funny.
So he does it and a little bit more. I'm like, I don't know, I can't think right now. And he just puts it's like a little scooper thing, and then he ties the knot and he puts it in, and I just thought that was, I didn't realize how. And then I have her here, right? And then Chelsea, I guess, shook it, and she's like, oh, I just heard grandma
Oh my
moving in there. And I said,
gosh.
I know. And I didn't even shake it. I haven't even opened it yet. She's in there. And then I just thought, what do we do? And it
Right.
was just
Right.
very, is that how have you thought of the services or?
Well, I was in California for a month for my mother's decline, and I was very grateful to be there for her death. And then I stayed an extra week to be present for all the logistical stuff and to be present to help my dad out because it's such a huge transition. Because of the holidays and me
So
having to
you
go
were
back.
there. Well, I don't know why I thought she was here.
No, she was in Northern
So
California. I
you
live.
just flew back?
Yeah, I flew back almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yes. So there will be a service at some point, but we're waiting till after the holidays. And yeah, my mother is in a beautiful urn, a hummingbird urn. I made an altar for her. It's at the house where my dad lives. And yeah, I don't have any ashes. It felt important to just keep her there for a bit.
I had no idea what to do. And I thought once we bury her, because I had to decide within a week or few days, right? And I said, I don't need to do this. In the very end, I thought, if I don't do it, I mean, what do you do, right? You have just a few days. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Then I order it from Amazon. And I'm like, please come before Friday, because then what do I do? Then we have to find another
Right.
thing. So I'm hunting around the house. What about this little thing? And Chelsea's like, no, what about this little? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to just know that it's going to come. But it's
Right.
very, for when you've never experienced the whole cremation and the whole ashes. My oldest one said she had a hard time, like you see, right? We had a viewing, and then knowing that, how did that happen? Like from the viewing to,
Yep.
and we picked her up. We could have had her delivered at the burial, but I don't know why. And my husband like puts her in the back seat, puts the seat belt
Oh my
around
God.
her. And I
That's
just
good.
thought,
Keep her safe.
I said, yeah, you need to keep her safe. And I just thought and then when you turn it around and her name is on it, it was just very, you know,
It's
but
surreal.
it is.
Very surreal. I know my dad's going through that now. He's like, your mom, my wife, is on an altar and an urn. It's just hard for the brain to recognize like this person was here for your whole life or however long. And now she or he is in a container. And
Yes,
yeah.
in a container. That's what it is. And then you know what they do at Oahu Veteran Cemetery? They used to just carry the urn in like a golf cart to the gravesite. Well, now they put the urn in a little plastic crate in the hearse, and the hearse drives like 2 minutes away. So my daughter's looking at it and saying, "Why?" So grandma's in a box that's going to be put in another box, and then they're going to put her in that big car, and then the car is going to
Oh
and I just
my
started
goodness.
laughing because it was just the three of us. And we're watching the hearse drive 2 minutes, or was it like, 30 seconds. And then I didn't know what to do. We had 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute service that the family gets to do what they want. And I thought, I didn't know. We didn't have she wasn't, she didn't practice a particular religion. So I thought we would share, but at the moment it started raining and we're just there. And
Mhm.
I felt like I didn't honor her the way we were supposed to, but then I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing too. I just want to add with the whole death doula piece. I've had so many friends who've died at this point, and
Yeah.
just want to advocate to everybody. I say this often, like if even if you're not sick or you think you're young, you're going to live forever, it's really a good idea. That most helpful thing you can do for your loved ones is to sort of create a plan. Like, okay, if I die, I want to be buried here, or I want to be cremated. And if possible, to work out these things beforehand, because I've seen it where you know, it can be very stressful and overwhelming and painful if somebody dies and that's not arranged.
You
It
don't know,
puts
right? Yeah,
all
you
that
don't know
weight
what
on
to do.
family, and they're already dealing with so much grief to begin with. So
I've been talking to my family about it, and I know my daughter was like, "Mom, are you being morbid?" I don't why, but when is a good time? When is a good time? I've been talking about it right after my dad
right,
passed in 2016, and then I'm realized, and I would change from time to time, and now I'm thinking I do want to be cremated, because just the whole idea of spending, having them spend what, tens of thousands of dollars, and then having to do the whole thing. I don't know. Then I thought, where do I want my ashes? And I think my parents just wanted, my dad was a planner, but he didn't leave any plans. I think he wanted me to do maybe what I thought I should do, and that he would be fine with it. Because everyone said, "Oh, your dad was such a planner. He didn't tell you?" Because other people, like, what songs, what flowers, what, right?
right, right. Well, people are scared with the topic of death. I mean, even if somebody's got stage 4 cancer and it looks like they're not doing well, there's such a fear to even approach the topic about it. So, you know, that's a forbidden topic in our culture. So I think just like breaking the ice a little bit, being like, okay, well, so, you know, we know you're alive and you're healthy or you're doing well, but if this happened, what would you like? And just even opening up the topic can be very helpful.
I love that. I need more of us. Yeah, we need to break that stigma of, oh no, we don't want to, because some people might say, well, if you talk about it, that means it might happen, or just the fear of discussing something so awkward, which is why I
Right.
think your book, I mean, just sharing your journey. How can people find you? Because I think everyone should read your journey that you're sharing currently about your mom, and just the horses. Can you share, just before we close, the power of how horses can heal?
Sure, I would love to. It's a topic I'm very passionate about. It's hard to put into words, but I was trained by Linda Konoff, who wrote the bestseller The Tao of Equus, and I'm not a therapist, but I'm an equine facilitated learning instructor. And what I do is I help hold space for humans with horses. We do passive self-reflective exercises, and we also do more active, like, leadership exercises. So horses, in a nutshell, they're very reflective, powerful beings. You know, they really make us be in the present moment. They're very big, you know, some of them are 1,000 pounds or bigger. And a lot of people have fear around horses. So there's something about being around horses that really makes you drop into your breath, into your body. You know, we live and we've grown up in a culture that's very mind oriented. It's all about like what you think and what you do. Whereas being around horses, it really makes you drop into your heart. And I think a big part of it is because they have such huge hearts. You know, they've got ginormous hearts and they're very instinctual, gut based, and heart based. So just being around a horse can be incredibly calming and can help draw somebody out of their grief process, or, you know, a overstimulated brain that's trained to think. And it can be just incredibly healing to be with horses, even if you're not really doing anything. I attribute, and that's a lot of the message in my book, is like I weave my story around being with the horses and how they've helped me through one challenging experience after another, just by the sheer act of going to feed them and be with them is very healing. So I think all animals are healing, but, you know, of course, I'm trained with the work with the horses. So they also, horses work with veterans, they work with people with PTSD, you know, domestic violence. It's becoming more accepted in our culture. So if anybody's curious, I highly recommend you check it out, because it's the branch of people working in this way is spreading. And it's just, I say horses saved my life, and I highly stand by that. And it's all in my book if you're curious to hear my story.
Wow. And how can they find you on Instagram?
Yeah, so I have a few pages on Instagram, but I'll just point you to my one main page. It's Tara Coyote, TARACOYOTE. And yeah, I'm also on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. You can put in my name, Tara Coyote. And
That's how I found you. Yeah, that's how when I saw that, I don't know which one I saw, was a brief interview regarding, I'm sure you have a lot of them, but I just thought, oh my gosh, I want the opportunity to interview if you if you're willing to do it, because it was just so
oh,
healing. And I think no matter what anyone is going through, like you said, just sometimes sharing your story with others can be healing, no matter what another person is going through, right? It doesn't have to be
definitely.
cancer, or it doesn't have to be death, just the challenges that all of us have been undergoing because of the whole 2020. And then when you lost, I just realized when you lost your friend, that was shortly before, right? No one could have even predicted how life would drastically change after, you know,
Right.
last what, March, or yeah, because I published Mama's Gotta Let Go in February, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, then quarantine, and then Zoom, and then it's like
Yeah.
2020 graduation, drive-by birthdays, drive-by graduation, drive-by, even during the funerals now, when we went to see the, went to the mortuary, there was a drive-by, you know, people like give bentos, and they
Oh,
just drove by after the service, and people were just, they burned incense, and I thought, wow, who would have imagined us, hosting
wow.
it is wild. Well, thank you so much. I know the rain has been so crazy. We almost postponed today, and I thought, you know what, let's just see. And when I woke up and I saw your text that, okay, it could be, but we were just, it's like life, so unpredictable, and
Yeah.
just be willing to accept without judgment, without even without, or just do you suggest people just embrace, whether it's disappointment, whether it's, or do you switch to see that whatever is happening, do you kind of flip switch it to see the positive beauty of it? Or do you just sit with it?
Some of both. That's a great question. I mean, I've had so many challenges. It's all in my book. So I train my brain to think now when a hard thing happens, like, okay, so there is a blessing here. I'm going to focus on the blessing, and deal with whatever the situation is, rather than focus on, oh my God, this is horrible. And, I go through that too. So that's a lot of what the horses teach us too, is to experience our feelings, like to get the message behind whatever happens, and then face it and then let it go. So that's what I try to do as well. And of course, the power of gratitude, but it's also very important to acknowledge the anger or frustration or grief,
Yes.
whatever it is, to process it and let it go and then move on. So rather than, you
Avoid
know,
it, right? Because if you avoid it, then
yeah,
you can't process it, you can't accept it.
yeah,
And you're obviously a huge testimony of what happened when you practice what you learned and the power of horses. I am going to, yeah, if you can share that. Tara was talking about someone on Oahu, and I think more and more people need to just make the time and be open-minded, because there are so many resources and tools out there. And I don't think we know a lot about it. I would love to learn more. I think whenever you experience, well, you've experienced multiple deaths, with me, with my dad, and then recently my mom, it does give you, I just don't want to fear it anymore. I think too
yeah,
many of us fear it, and then once you fear it, you avoid it. And then when you avoid it, you just perpetuate the fear, right, with your loved ones, because then they'll avoid it. And that's one thing I just realized, like, as I'm talking to you, when it becomes my time, I want my daughters to be like prepared. No one can prepare themselves emotionally, but at least, like you said, if you talk about it, right, and just make it not a forbidden topic.
yeah, yeah. I made a video actually. I think it's my best, most relevant video. It's called Embracing Death. I put it out like a month ago. It was when my mom was starting to decline. And another friend, dear friend of mine here in Kauai, had just died, and I got to be with him for his death, which is very powerful. So, anyways, I made a 12-minute video all about facing the topic of death, that if you want to put in the show notes, you can. But
I
it's
will.
all about what we're
You know what?
talking
Maybe that's what I saw. Yeah, because it was
about. Oh,
right.
okay. It could be. It could be.
Because
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was just very, very powerful. And it made the way that
Mhm.
you communicate and share, it doesn't, you don't fear it anymore. I mean, you still fear, but you just embrace it. And it's just, you just have such a beautiful way of communicating. And everyone watching this, you just have to just read just even one of your, I don't know, the way that you mention current journeys that you experience, wearing your mom's pajamas. I just immediately thought, like, when my daughter comes back from California, she's like, Mom, can I wear your pajamas? Did you wash them? I hope you did. And I thought, what? And I guess, I don't know, I'm going to just leave my pajamas in your drawer. So when I leave and I can take them. And I thought, okay. I just thought it was very weird. But now that I just read your little story, I'm sure it makes you feel close.
Yeah. It was very poignant. But it's also too, I mean, it's the grief process. You can only, what I'm finding 3 weeks past my mom's death is like, I can only let it in a little bit at a time because it's so huge, the whole losing your mom. It's so deep, they created us. So.
But I love how you, right after that, you said, I'm ready to wear it now, but I might not be able to wear it tomorrow. And that's very, very just enlightening, where, like you said, it just hit me. I just sent out thank you cards. And that's when I realized, wow, I don't know why it's hit me. I think during maybe Christmas morning, it hits you. And then I guess I keep myself busy, and I think I need to, and there will be a time, but you are such an inspiration. It is a process, but it's like living while grieving and then doing what you need to do, right? Because I can't just, I could put life on hold, but part of me, I think that's part of healing, like doing what I'm supposed to do, like, regarding my students, or, right? Just throwing out the trash.
I was talking with a friend about that the other day too. It's like, I feel like I'm straddling two worlds, because at the same time, doing everything I normally do, but at the same time, I'm processing this immense grief. And it's like I'm tethered between two places. And I realized that this weekend, of like, I need to slow down and just give space for the grief part, because if I don't attend that, then I get frazzled in my everyday life. And so it's definitely a process.
I love how you just said that. Yeah, it's like tethered. And then yesterday I felt I was very unproductive. I did some stuff, and then I thought, you know what? After seeing the rain, I thought, I'm not going to do anything. And I felt so guilty. So I ended up doing little things like, okay, I can do the 30-second like promo for 95.5, and I can do this, but after that, do nothing. And something happens. Something happens where I need to write another thank you card. I need to.
Right.
But it's like what you said, you are tethered. That's what it is. You're tethered, and you need to grieve, but you need to live, and you need to take out the trash. You need to wash dishes. I need to feed my dogs, right? And each time and then this morning, can you share real quick before we end? I keep saying that about your horses, why we pushed back the time. When I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, should we reschedule it? I was going to ask you want to reschedule it to another day, but the rains on Kauai were so bad that explain what you had to do.
It wasn't that big of a deal, but I like how you bring humor in. That's one of my coping techniques, is always to find something to laugh at. And there's always something, even the most.
But you mentioned your tents and the rain, and I just visualized the tents, like, I don't know, falling on your horses, and you're just telling me, wait, why don't we just push it back? I'm gonna just tend to my horses. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, I did go to I couldn't picture what you actually had to do.
Well, no, okay, it's not the tent my horses live in. My horses are loose on land. They have a structure, but I have this horse tent where I keep their food and everything like that. So I have all their food in different bins. Luckily, that's covered. So my lovely two kittens were climbing last night on the structure, and I was a little bit worried because the structure, everything gets so worn down because we're in the tropics with the sun and the heat and the rain, and I could see their little claws going through, and I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. And so when I came out to feed them this morning, there was this big rip in the tent.
Oh my God.
Luckily the rip was over just where their bins of food is. It wasn't on other areas. So I had to clean that up, and I'm gonna have to deal with getting a new roof cover and all that. But yeah, it wasn't anything disastrous, but it was just like, okay.
No, but it's still, it's still, but you see how calm you are? Yeah, it ripped. I'm gonna just have to replace it. And
Well, it's kind of constant things that need to be done when you're living on property with horses. It's
I
like,
was
all right.
I shared your story with someone on Kauai, and she goes, "Yep, sounds like life on Kauai." You know, because that you hear roosters all the time, or you just I just love the neighbor islands. I mean, I think it's almost like we live in New York. You know, when you think about it, Oahu's like New York, and
Yeah,
then the
yeah.
neighbor islands are just very. You just picture. But what's happening is that the influx of tourists, is just causing what would you call it? The piece of the local style. I mean, nothing against tourists, but it hasn't even been crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially Oahu, I know. But yeah, Kauai's been very, very busy too.
Crazy. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I loved talking story with you. I know I took way more than the scheduled time, but I feel healed just watching you and
Oh, thank you.
interacting with you. I hope that we can just converse sometimes just without, any agenda, and I just love your energy. Tara, thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you. Oh, thank you. It's been an honor. Great to connect with you too. Really
Definitely. Okay,
appreciate it.
take care.
All
Keep
right.
dry.
Aloha.
Okay, bye. Aloha.